All right. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Grow Up with Grow show. My name is Brett Schklar, your cruise director and managing partner here on the Grow Up with Grow show. There's a lot of marketing shows that are out there, but this one is designed for the CEOs, the EROs, and the VCs. So if you're one of those, listen up. We've got some great things to share. So let's go into the show. Let's dive in. The topic today is something that I am interested in learning about for our guests, and it is customers, community, and content, the early stage SaaS path to success. Say that 5 times fast. And the reason why I'm excited to have somebody here is we're giving it away in the title, right? Customers, community, and content. That's the answer. You can hang up now if that's what you wanted to know. But there's a lot of context within them. And the person that I thought was great, that really has this idea and brings it together. Well, I'm not going to hold out any longer. Her name is Ashley McAlpin. And Ashley is here with us. Ashley, I'm going to brag about you for a second, then I'll let you dive in and say hello. But you spent the last 15 years as a marketer, particularly in B2B SaaS. And that's what we're here to talk about today, mostly. You've been the first marketing hire a couple of times. So as we talk about the early stages of SaaS path to success, I'm going to have to really practice that one. You've been there, done that. You know the jobs to be done. And you scaled startups from $1 million to $20 million, building those marketing foundations, building those teams, and really driving that scale. So, you've been a part of bootstrapped companies that have been, investment of zero. You've been a part of bootstrap or early stage companies that have had investments. So you've kind of seen it all. So I'll shut up and I'll let you say hello, Ashley. Now that I've bragged about you so much, please.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Brett. And yes, it's definitely been a whirlwind. If I think about tech and kind of the landscape 15 years ago, and then I think about it today, there's been a lot of change. And so you said I've seen it all. I've definitely seen a lot of it. I don't think I've seen all of it. I don't think anybody's seen all of it. But when it comes to early stage, especially early stage like CEOs and VCs and what you should be thinking about and what you should be looking for if you're looking to invest in marketing, or even like looking to determine whether or not your marketing is on the right track and like what things you should be thinking about. That's definitely my wheelhouse and somewhere that I've been for a long time. And right now I'm at a company called Rockerbox. We do marketing attribution for B2C brands. And it has been a wild ride, and I'm excited to be here today and talk to you a little bit about it.
Well, nice. Glad to have you here. Glad you're, bringing some of that real world experience into a company right now. Attribution for consumer companies is probably a really challenging thing. So you probably got your hands quite full. So I think we kind of know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I think it's important as to why you're the best person to talk about this. What is it, Ashley, that makes you so uniquely qualified to share insights about early stage SaaS company growth and their path to success?
Yeah, I think because I've been there and I've done that, right? Having been the first marketing hire 3 times at 3 different B2B SaaS startups, I have not only seen how it goes once, but I've seen how it goes 3 times under 3 different CEOs, under 3 very different personalities, and really within 3 different verticals in the B2B SaaS space. And so I think that having that kind of like rinse and repeat strategy, that I know some of the things that worked at one of those places, but didn't work at the other 2. But then I also know the things that have been consistent across all of those. And then kind of put on top of that, the fact that over the last 15 years, I have been able to build and really connect with a great community of early stage B2B SaaS marketers, and test these kind of things on them too, and kind of understand from them, like what's working from you. And so I think that gives me a unique advantage when we're talking about early stage B2B SaaS. Like, this is exactly where I thrive. And this is where I have built a playbook that actually works. And I'm executing that playbook right now, and it's working. So I think
Nice.
that gives me a step up.
Well, then that kind of answers the question of your superpower, but I'd love to know, is there something specific when people work with you, they're like, wow, that's what her superpower is?
Oh, that's a great question. I think if I had to distill my superpower into something that was like tactical and from a marketing perspective, because I think one of the things, and maybe this should actually be my superpower, but one of the things that I think you don't appreciate unless you've been a first marketing hire at an early stage company is that to be an executive marketer and to be the first marketer, like those in a lot of cases can be really like worlds apart because
Mhm.
you have to be able to execute on all of the strategy that, ideally a year from now, I'll have a team of people executing. I have to not only be able to determine the strategy and the strategic vision for how we build this engine, but I have to be able to execute on it. And I have to know exactly what to do to get us to the point where we can add people to the team to really get the engine humming.
Yeah.
And then when we like drill that into like a tactical thing, I love building inbound engines. It is my bread and butter. At my last company, our inbound engine fueled revenue at 98%.
Wow.
And when I joined, we were sub 1 million. And when I left, we were just past the 20 million mark. And that remained like we were inbound driven through that engine. And so that's definitely like where my passion is. But I think the superpower is that I can see both sides of it and I can execute on it.
And that's unique. And I think it's interesting because when we're talking with a lot of potential CEOs that are looking at our fractional CMOs, they want the people who have, grown companies and scaled them up, but they also want that same person to be able to get there. And the term I've heard a couple of times, I don't know if they learned this at CEO Academy or not, but getting their fingernails in the dirt, right? Are these people willing to get their fingernails in the dirt? And the short answer is yes. Now, some of the CEOs on our team, or sorry, CMOs on our team are, a lot more tactical and a lot more like you that can go from the strategy to tactics, and others are maybe a little bit more strategic and they don't want to get into the tactics. And so they're at our fractional CMO for larger companies. But we definitely see the value in building a strategy and then rolling up the sleeves and going and doing it. And that is a great superpower. So let's dive into, we're in 2023. And in fact, we're at the end of Q1 of 2023. And
Yeah.
what that means is there's only 9 months left in the year.
Yeah.
And so, SaaS companies, especially B2B SaaS companies, especially ones that are larger tickets, maybe even medium tickets, they're already thinking about how to finish out the year. They're
Mm.
already looking at, here's what we said at our sales kickoff, or our sales kickoffs are now being called GTM, go to markets. That's what they call the sales kickoffs now. And they're now looking at it and saying, okay, 2023 is here. Talk to me about what you've found as a winning formula so far in 2023 that people
Yeah.
can leverage and carry forward with them through the rest of the year to help them meet their goals.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think like before jumping in, we have to think about this year, right? Like 2023 has been one of the wildest years. I think like had COVID not happened in 2020, we'd probably all be sitting here saying like 2023 is the craziest year like we've ever had. Obviously we've been through a lot over the last couple of years, but when we look at the macroeconomic space, we look at everything happening globally and everything in Europe, and we look at everything happening in the US, we look at everything happening in tech. Like there is a lot going on this year. And a lot of companies are at this point, especially when they're talking about marketing investment, where they're asking themselves like, okay, how do we get to your point? Like, how do we get to the finish line safely, efficiently, effectively? Like how to profitably, like how do we put all these pieces together and get where we're going, but in like the safest way possible? And it's worth noting that we're like coming out of this wave where we were talking about like burn and grow at all costs. Like there
Yep.
is no limit, like there is plenty of money to go around. Like we just need to grow, grow, grow. And profitability and efficiency was not really something that we were talking about. And that puts a lot of marketers and a lot of CEOs and a lot of VCs in this like hard position where you're like shifting down and you're like, okay, we got to figure this out and we've got to still grow, but we need to grow in a way that is more sustainable and smarter. And that's kind of where I came to this conclusion of like, how do I distill everything that I've done as a first-time marketing hire? How do I take all of the knowledge that I have from being a bootstrap marketer, who's been in this position where like I've been in a position where I haven't had a lot of funds, and how do I distill that into something that people can take and kind of play as a playbook, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I came to this, like the 3 C's, which we gave it away in the title, right? With customers, community, and content. And honestly, like if there's one thing, like one winning theme that's going to carry businesses all the way through to the end. Sorry, I have my, sorry. I carry businesses all the way through the end of the year. It's going to be those 3 C's. And so when we're looking at it, we've got and I'm kind of going to like drill into each of those. So first, we've got customers. So obviously everybody knows like customers are really important, but when we're talking about reducing our marketing investment, or we're talking about like not having as much as we've had in the past, like we have to do more with less. And a lot of the times that means looking at our customers, understanding them, and being able to take everything that we know about our customers and focus on retention, focus on expansion, focus on doing what we're doing and like understanding like what are we actually solving for our customers, and then getting more out of that. And that kind of speaks to the content too, right? Like we know that content is king. We know that the better your positioning is, the more that what you're saying resonates with your ideal customer profile, the better success that you're going to have. And like those two go hand in hand, right? Like understanding your customer and pushing into your content are 2 of the biggest keys. And then we have community, which is like this last piece that can feel kind of ambiguous and can feel kind of like, well, what do you mean by community? And for the context of this conversation, I mean like building a community around your business to go to market together. Because over the past couple of years, like alliances have been becoming stronger. They've been gaining speed. We've seen a lot more investment in like channel partnerships and agencies and things like that. But as an early stage B2B SaaS marketer, I am putting so much of my energy into cultivating agency relationships and cultivating lateral tech relationships, because I know that if we can go to market together, we can leverage both of our audiences to get in front of double the amount of people for half the investment. And that's huge, especially in a time where we're trying to be more profitable and we're trying to be more efficient. Like really pressing into that community is something that I think a lot of businesses are neglecting right now. And honestly, like it is the path forward in these.
And it goes back to the grow at any cost was all about net new logos, right? Get as many logos as possible, get as many people, as many companies, right? The lead machine is, how many net new emails can we send out? How many net new, social selling, LinkedIn requests can we do? All of it. Now the growth at all cost mantra has been replaced with, what's the revenue per head count, which is something we haven't heard of in a couple of years as a key metric. And now that it's a metric we're looking at, it's like, oh shit, now we have to now we got to be, and as you said, smarter. And I think smarter, yes, I think it's efficiency, which is also something you said very much so. It's not that we weren't smart as marketers before. It was that the North Star was growth at any costs. Now it's growth, but within the parameters that we can afford growth. And that's a huge change. The other comment around community, and I do agree that community can be somewhat of a nebulous thing for, the CEOs and the investors and the people that listen to this podcast. There's a couple of ways to look at it. And you mentioned this, but I want to dive in with a little bit of a different lens. One of the communities is your customers. And what's more important now than ever is love the one you're with, right? Just, hashtag no churn, right? Don't lose any customers, but also double down and invest in the customers you've got with the love, with the user groups, with feedback, This is the time to respond to every email within a couple of minutes. This is the time to actually have somebody on the website to, respond to the chat from the website, not just a bot, those types of things. The other community is referral partners. And it really is a great time, maybe not to keep spam them and throw more at them, but have those conversations, ask those questions, treat them like a community member where it's a two-way conversation, because a lot of people are trying to throw a lot of stuff down the indirect channels, the referral partners. And don't be that guy. Don't be that person. Be the person that actually wants to have a conversation and help solve problems for people. So I think when you say community, I think it's an opportunity to actually be a community leader for some of these companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you touched on something interesting with customers too. Like it's a great point. Like I actually like just kicked off a whole campaign around voice of the customer. And like,
Mhm.
I got a couple questions, like why right now? Like, why is now when we need to focus on it? And my answer was like, now there's never been a time we needed to focus on this more. Like I want to give every single one of our customers a platform to tell me everything they think, because I want us to be ahead of the curve. I want us to be speaking their language. I want us to be, nurturing them in a way that makes sense to them. And I
Mhm.
need to, as a marketer or as a CEO, like you need to understand your customer now more than ever before, because that's a huge piece of retention. It's like, just making them feel seen and heard and talking to them in the same way that they're talking to you.
Yep. Yep.
2023, like right now is not the time to reinvent yourself. And like, that's hard. Like that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of B2B early stage SaaS organizations, because it's kind of a little bit of the name of the game, right? Like
Right.
in different revenue tiers, there is a little bit of like reinventing that happens to a lot of
Mhm.
companies. And like right now, I want to be listening to our customers and I want to understand how they think about us. And then I want to push into that. And I want to show them how much more valuable we can be by adding to that, not trying to reframe that. I don't want to teach them something different. I don't want to make them think about me differently. I want to double down into the way that they're talking about me and then add to it and like make it better, because I don't have the luxury, and like a lot of businesses don't have the luxury of like having all of this space and time to teach their customers something right now, because customers aren't buying that many things, right?
Right.
Like, so if they've chosen to buy you, then you need to remind them that that was the best choice and that
Yeah.
they are smart and that they know what they're talking about, and that the value they see in you is going to be the value that they will see in you 6 months from now, but then add to it, right? Don't try to reframe it or like convince them there's some unseen value that they need to adopt, because to your point, like churn zero. Like that's
Yep. 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 Exactly. Hashtag churn zero. Yeah.
I hope
And,
they're a sponsor. No.
so, I think, one of the things that you're bringing to light is how critical it is to have that first marketing hire be right. Right.
Yeah.
And like the example you gave, somebody that understands that while voice of the customer seems like something that bigger companies would do and more mature marketplaces, the reality is it's needed right now because the customer is the most important thing ever. So other than stealing you away from whatever company you're at and offering you, gazillion marketing dollars of salary, what should CEOs and maybe their investor partners be looking for in those early marketing hires, in those first marketing hires?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think like we touched a little bit on this earlier, but one of the things that makes it so hard for B2B SaaS companies specifically, but early stage, to get that first marketing hire right. And like, and it's rarely right the first time, right?
Mhm.
Like I've seen a lot, like I know a lot of CEOs, like I've been in this space for a long time. And I know a lot of companies who have, had a couple false starts before they got to the one that was the right start. And I think that's because there's a couple of factors at play. Like there are a lot of really brilliant marketers who have very strategic minds, who have great experience at scale. And that scale does not always translate back down
Yeah.
to the starting point.
Yeah.
And like that's a
Yeah.
big piece, because
Yeah.
like like you can have the most brilliant marketing minds in the world, but that does not mean that they're going to know what to do with your 20 or 10 or 5 or 3-person team. And like, that doesn't mean that they're going to know how to do it all when they're the only person in marketing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's important, and like, and that's difficult, and that's not bashing those marketers who are great at scale. Like they have a very unique and special and obviously important skill set, but that skill set doesn't translate back down. And I think a lot of CEOs and VCs, especially if they haven't been around the block as many times, like first time CEOs especially tend to like have like a, they see the shiny object and they're like, that is a good marketer, I
Yeah.
need that. And like
Yeah.
the reality is you need someone who can think like that, but you need someone who, to your point, has their fingernails dirty because they've been in the weeds and
Yeah.
they've been pulling them and they've been organizing them and they've been tilling the earth and they've been like cultivating this garden, and like they have a vision for where it should go. And ideally, they're not the ones doing all of the work, but they know how. They have to know how, because even if you're willing to invest in like agencies and like bring in contractors or like build a team really quickly, your first marketing hire has to intimately understand how each of those roles play together
Yeah.
to create something in a way that like you don't necessarily do if you are used to scaling marketing orgs from 20 to 100. Like that's a very different skill set, and the type of people that you need when you have 100 marketers on your team is very different. Like I'm as an early stage marketer who's building teams, I'm looking for utility players who are really, really strong in one area, but have the ability to branch out and do a lot of different things, because those are the people I know are going to be able to do everything I need today. And then they're also going to be able to scale into their role and own a whole department where there's people under them doing things.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing CEOs or VCs should be looking for in first marketing hires, especially at those companies who are between, 5 and 15 or 5 and 20 million ARR. Like you need a marketing utility player who strategically knows how to sit at the executive table and how to talk to a board,
I
but
like
also
that.
knows
I
how to
like that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that the term marketing utility player is a really strong comment there. And I think that should be in the job description, right? Marketing
it
utility
really
player.
should.
It's almost like, you can go from the formal balls down, you can dress up and look good at a formal ball, like you fit, but also like, we'll see at a construction site and you look like you fit there
Yeah,
too, right? It's like and
exactly.
that utility player, I think is a great analogy, a great example. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really true, right? Because I think about the roles that I've had as a first marketing hire, and like it was it's equally as important that I know how to talk to my CEO and how to ask hard questions and like push them in the
Yeah.
direction of like in the business direction that I think makes the most sense and is most viable from a revenue perspective. It's equally as important that I can do that as I can understand SEO strategy and execute on landing pages, right? Because a lot of the time I'm doing both. And
Yeah.
so, and I think too often the reason that CEOs get it wrong is not because they don't know what they're looking for. It's because there are not as many marketers as I wish there were in this space who don't scale out of it, right? Like a lot of marketers will do their time in this space and then they want to scale up and out, because to your point, like they can do the work, but they don't really want to. They'd rather be strategic and like focus all of their time and energy on those like cross-departmental things and like a lot of the alliances and a lot of the external things that you do at the C
Yep.
level
Yep.
at scaling org. And that's okay, that's good, but it makes it really difficult for emerging companies to find CMOs, heads of marketing, VP of marketing, who want to sit in that seat another time and another round and want to scale something again. And I think that's why we're seeing an influx in the fractional work, right? Because there is this kind of gap in this space. And I think you're filling that gap in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I agree. I think what we're finding is most marketers are fractional anyway, with the average lifespan being about 19 months for a B2B technology,
Yeah.
CMO, a SaaS CMO is 19-month lifespan. We're all kind of fractional anyway. Not everybody can scale up from a certain point to a certain point. And the ones who can are very unique, people. And honestly, that's why we have, I think we're at 30 fractional CMOs, is because there might be somebody that's better in the super early stages of the market army of one to a small team. And they can use those efficiencies to move fast, versus someone that might need to have a team of 10 to 20 before they're actually that good, because it's more about the leadership than it is about the operations. And one of the things I wanted, when you talk about the idea of the fact that, you're the one, hitting the push button, you're pushing the button on the campaigns to send them out, and you're the ones analyzing them and preparing reports for the board of directors. Got to be so efficient, right? You don't have to sit in a meeting and say, hey, hey, Ashley, how did it go? Well, Ashley, I think it went fine. Here's our results. Oh, well, let's double click into that and find out what's going on. Okay, Ashley. Hey, other Ashley, what was going on over on LinkedIn? It's the army of one is the efficiency that can really get you to pivot very quickly. But, and that's great for the small businesses.
Yeah. And I will say, I gotta give credit back. I am not an army of one today. I am an army of, there's three of us. And I have a head of digital and a product marketer, which like we could have a whole nother conversation on like, what should an early marketing team look like if you have limited investment and you need to build a team. I have a lot of thoughts on that too. But I mean, having a product marketer and having someone who's really strong in digital kind of aligned with my like core like content and inbound engine strategy. It's been the dream team at this size, and one that I'm hoping will scale. But I can't take credit for being an army of one this time. I wasn't one for long, but
Yeah.
the concept still remains.
Gotcha. Well, one of the questions I wanted to sort of dive into is around the marketing strategy and the focus, right? Because there's a company strategy, and CEOs and investors understand that. They may not understand what a marketing strategy is, and that's okay. They don't need to. You need to, but they don't need to. And then talk about the sort of strategy and focus, and how can that really impact these early stages of, the early growth of a company.
Yeah, I think this all comes back to these three C's, and it's why it's like it's such a good like pillar for us to kind of hook, like the cornerstone for us to like just build everything off of. Because when we're looking at early stage companies and like what should the marketing strategy be, it's really easy to get overwhelmed really quickly because there's a million things that you can do from a marketing perspective. I mean, I know this from being at my last company where we scaled from literally I was the first and only marketing hire to when I left, I oversaw a team of 25, and 15 of those were like marketers and 10 were SDRs. And like that engine worked so well, but I could have easily doubled the team and done more things, right? There's always going to be more to do. There are always new channels to test, and there is always another strategy that we can execute on. And I think like when you're an early stage company, it's really easy to look at marketing and be like, where do I start? Like what should I be focusing on for this first stretch, from the stretch from 0 to 1, or from 1 to 5, or even from 5 to 10? Like, what is the most important part of my marketing strategy? And the answer is customer, community, content. Get your content right. Focus on your content. Like, there is so much value still in a good, solid SEO strategy. And like, people are sleeping on it. So don't be that company. Like, focus on your content, get your brand positioning down, understand your messaging, listen to your customers to inform that messaging. Like, that's huge. Cultivate community, build those relationships with your partners. Like, if you have limited energy to focus on, I would focus on my content strategy, and I would focus on my co-marketing with tech partners, because those two areas are going to get you far enough to get you out of this first stage where you can continue to increase your investment and build some of that, because you're going to build brand equity going to market with other companies in a way that would be unavailable to you as a new like emerging technology without leaning on someone else. And it's such an It's such an underrated strategy. So if I were doing it right now, I would literally take those 3 C's and say like, okay, there's a strategy under each of theirs. These, as a marketer, what's my customer strategy? What should I be doing? I should be talking to customers at least once a week, at
Yep.
least.
Yep.
It's Tuesday. I've already talked to 4 customers this week. Like, talk to customers, understand them, know their story, know what they like and don't like about your product, understand them, listen to calls, whatever. Build community, find other companies, even if you don't have a formal partnership operation, which like most early stage companies don't, take it upon yourself. Go find 2 other companies who are servicing the same person you're servicing,
Mhm.
and then go meet them. Go
Nice.
ask them
Yep.
like, hey, how can we get further together? Like, what can we do? Can we do a webinar? Can we, it doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be like, oh, we're going to sign on the dotted line. Like it doesn't have to be transactional. Like it can literally
Right.
be like, hey, I have a small audience. You have a small audience. Like, let's merge our audiences and double it. Right.
Yeah, it may be an
And
industry thing. It may be
yeah,
a pain point thing. It may be something else where, and I love this. It is content and co-marketing, which co-marketing becomes a content
yeah,
of the sort of 2 things. And I think that's a really good, if we're thinking about, what's the key takeaway, what's the leave behind, and what's the, how do we simplify it for a 6th grader or for a 6-year-old or for a CEO? It is it's a great place because I think that articulates the 3 C's, the customers, the community, and the content into something really understandable and actionable, content. There's no such thing as bad content. Just keep it coming as long as it's
yeah,
relevant and interesting to your customer base, which by the way, if you're talking to your customers, like you said, you understand them and you understand the content they'll be looking for. And then co-marketing, make them the superheroes.
yeah.
This is something we talk about a lot, is the idea of the hero in a story isn't the SaaS company. The hero in the story is the customer. And what you call co-marketing, I call elevating your customers to be the hero of your story.
Mhm.
And then everybody wins.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't get the revenue you want from that customer, or maybe they're a small customer, maybe there's a friend, but boy, I mean, talk about the equity that's built up with that
Oh, yeah.
customer. The next time somebody's asking a question about something, they'll say, hey, look at this SaaS product, because they seem to know what they're talking about. And they sure like to listen to me.
A
So,
100%. And
yeah,
I asked this question on LinkedIn recently, but like I asked, when's the last time you made a purchase that wasn't influenced by social proof?
yeah,
I'll wait.
yeah, yeah,
I don't have any.
absolutely. I
I grocery shop at Trader Joe's and I buy all of the stuff that those influencers tell me I need to buy. Like, I mean, every purchase that you're making, especially when it comes to technology, like as a purchaser, as a technology purchaser, I need social proof. So how do we do that? Community,
yep,
customers, content, like these things, like these themes, and like any strategy that you want to know, like, should I execute? Like, is this a good marketing strategy? Level it up against those. And if it doesn't speak to one of those, it's probably not right for you, especially at an early stage where you
yeah,
need to be doubling down into these things.
I love it. Okay, Ashley, I think this is where we need to wrap up and end. I think this has been some amazing insights. Obviously, the answer to the question of growth for early stage SaaS companies is customers, community, and content. You got that before you even spent 10 seconds in the show, but it's really good to understand the depth of each of those and how they play together and work with each other and work independently and work collaboratively to come together to
Mhm.
really help those early stage SaaS companies with their path to success. And so I can't thank you enough for being a part of the show. Hey, Ashley, here's a question for you. So first, thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
Second of all, is if somebody wanted to find you, where would they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Ashley McAlpin. Yeah, I'm sure Brett has the link. He can drop it somewhere in the show notes, but
Perfect. We'll
you
add
can
it in
find
the
me
show
on
notes.
LinkedIn. And if you are a B2C company or brand, I got to say it, and you're looking for marketing attribution, head over to Rockerbox.
All right, perfect. Love that. We'll also put that in the show notes as well. All right.
Thanks.
Well, that's it. So if you like this show, we would love you to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever the hell you listen to these things. Visit us at growpowerful.io, subscribe to our blog, subscribe to our newsletter on LinkedIn. That one seems to be pretty popular. Search for us on YouTube. And if you happen to be a fractional chief marketing officer, reach out to me. I've got a couple of communities, speaking of communities, that we have, that's an open community for people that are fractional CMOs, CMOs that are maybe looking at becoming fractional, what we call fractional curious individuals. But it's everything going on in the fractional CMO world. Again, Ashley, thank you very much. And we will talk to you all very soon. Cheers.